couldn't. I love the night. That's the only time I feel really alive.
That's what David wanted.
Blood, I was to find, was a necessity as well.
A vampire in love with a slayer. It's rather poetic. I am the monster that breathing men would kill. I am Dracula.
Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is actually not down. This is a special bonus episode, so I pulled my curtains very tight to protect myself, and I'm recording in the daytime. I have just finished watching Salem's Lot for the second time because I like to give movies a second chance sometimes. You know, the movies that I watch, they kind of fall into three categories. Most of them I watch twice, once to take notes and then once just to take it in. There are some special movies that I will watch over and over and over and over again. They're at the top. And then there are some movies that I cannot stomach a second time. So whatever I took in, that's what I took in. So I just got finished watching the new 2024 Salem's Lot, and I am clicking record for you to bring this to you in real time. I'm already distracted. I forgot what I'm supposed to say, so let's just go off script. It's October. I'm so excited. I was in New Orleans. I just got back. I'm actually in a tank top so that I can air out my fresh Dracula inspired tattoo. So if you are listening, go to YouTube so you can see me. And I realized I don't often wear a tank top when I'm recording, but again, I wanted this tattoo to air out. And I realized when I clicked record on my camera that because of my black hair and I'm wearing a black tank top, it looks like the way that it's shot, it looks like I'm nude. So I don't know if people clicked on this because they think I'm recording nude. I am not. There's actually a black tank top. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the tease. I didn't do that on purpose. And again, I'm distracted. I don't know. It's the October vibes, everybody. So thank you to everybody who gave me a happy birthday. I was like overwhelmed with how many people shouted happy birthday to me. I was down in the French Quarter. I had the most magical, amazing, wonderful time. I cannot wait to move there someday, but I had such a good time. Shout out to Electric Ladyland Tattoo, to Ed Derrenter, who is now my dude, because he and I together are gonna do a whole vampire half sleeve. So he took my like lame Dracula idea and turned it into this beautiful piece with the Demeter and bats and a moon, and the script says, I have crossed oceans of time to find you, and it's in like scrawl, and there's ink like he was writing on parchment. Oh my gosh. So when it's healed, I will post it on Instagram. But shout out, like, I'm just so happy, and I can't wait to go back and do the next part. And I already know what I want to do, but we're going to keep that under wraps. I have my vampire tea with me today because I need it. So I took Stake This, which is a green tea, and I iced it. So I have iced green tea in my pentagram Stanley here. So I could be ready for y'all. Because it's the beginning of October, let's talk about my tarot. So my September tarot said that I was going to meet the man of my dreams, my perfect partner. I was going to meet him in the place that I always expected. And normally I don't like to bring new relationships to the podcast or even talk about my personal life, but listen, when you know, right? Very exciting. I met him the beginning of September in Home Depot. I'd like to introduce you to the new man in my life, Bram. Yes, Bram. Bram is 7 feet tall. He, yes, is older than me, but very protective, which I'm kind of into. He doesn't say very much, but when he does, he has a very thick Eastern European accent, which, sigh. And he can pull off black velvet. Wonderful. Right now, he's out on my deck because he's guarding my house. He just insists on it. He says I'm too special to be left unguarded, which, ladies, am I right? But that's Bram, the new man in my life. All joking aside, if I met somebody special in September, maybe I don't know it yet. I met so many new people in September, so who knows? But let's talk about October. So October, I got the Ace of Wands upright. An invitation for new energy to come into your life. In your love life, the Ace of Wands appears to let you know you're about to be flooded with endorphins. Your body is about to be filled with sensual energy and passion for an exciting new lover. That's Bram. We haven't consummated our relationship yet, but I can't believe I'm talking about this on my podcast. So embarrassing. This ace represents passionate sexual chemistry and all of those exciting butterflies in the tummy feelings we get when we're spending time with a new partner. It's a card that's rooted in the early stages of relationships, so don't expect anything too serious this month. I don't think that you and your new love interest will quite be ready to have the big conversations, but you will enjoy getting to know each other, having fun together, and exploring your romantic and physical connection. The Ace of Wands is also a positive sign that your new love interest is going to be extremely attracted to you. They'll have you on their mind constantly, and they'll be keeping their eyes on their phone waiting for you to text them again. I can sense your feelings will be running high and you'll be feeling great. Promise surrounding the new connection. The card is a sign that this feeling will definitely be mutual and you and your new love interest are going to have lots of fun together. So I assume that is about Bram. But if it's not, let's not tell him, because I feel like he just seems like the jealous type. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's mature, he's sophisticated, but I think if he felt threatened, he might kill somebody. And I don't say that lightly. All right, let's talk a little bit about October, and then we're going to jump into what I thought about Salem's Lot. It just came out yesterday, so if you haven't watched it and you're clicking on a review of it, spoiler alerts, duh. I'm going to spoil everything for you. We talk about all of it. Who hooks up with who gets pregnant, who dies, who kills who, blah-de-blah. So if you clicked on this and you haven't seen it, then that's on you. You can pause it now and go watch it and come back. It's streaming on Max exclusively. But if you just want to hear me talk about it, then please stay. October, guys, is so freaking exciting. It's been hard to keep this secret. You know, we started recording this back in like July or August. My friends can tell me when I started talking to them about it, but I said, you know what, I have all these amazingly cool people in my life. Why don't I bring them onto the podcast and we can talk about vampire stuff and like get geeked out and nerded out. And so we broke it down by decades. Tony from Hack the Movies is 1960 to 1979, and his episode drops in 2 days on the 6th at midnight. Then Jacob Givens from Waterproof Records is coming on the following week, and we do a little 80s, 90s slumber party and talk about all the vampire stuff that made the 80s and 90s, in my opinion, the best decades for horror and vampires and music. And then Frances from the Boutique du Vampire, her and I talked in a super cool place in the French Quarter about 2000 until now. And then I had like a master plan for the last weekend of October, but it kind of fell apart. That's okay, because something new came in front of me, which is I am going on a ghost hunt at an abandoned long-term care facility here in Pennsylvania. So I will be piecing together not just all the stuff that happens to me on that night, but also bringing back some of the clips from all my previous ghost hunts and just bringing you like the juiciest bits of me ghost hunting. I ghost hunt around West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. I've been to some pretty cool places, had some pretty wild experiences. So my last weekend of October will be all of the best of ghost hunting with Lena. And if you follow me on Instagram, I will be posting on October, I think it's the 19th, live from that ghost hunt. So if anything happens, you're going to see it there first. If not, that's okay. Come back the following weekend and see my recap of all of my best ghost hunts. And that is October. I also have a bunch of appearances, so make sure you're following me. I'm going to be at the Haunted Hills Hayride and a couple other places, probably unexpected, and doing something fun in Nashville. So please make sure you're following me to see what happens out there. And now, it's enough with the business stuff, right? Whenever I do a bonus episode, I always feel very unorganized. It really is off the cuff when I tell you guys that it's off the cuff. Let's talk about Salem's Lot 2024. Yeah. So I just finished watching it for the second time. Last night I watched it and took notes. And this morning I woke up and I was like, you know what? Let's give it a second chance. Put the laptop away, put the pen away, and just watch it. My friends know that I sent them some heated videos last night about how I felt, and I thought maybe I'll give it a second chance. So I just finished watching it. I still feel the same, if not stronger, about my feelings about Salem's Lot. So as we all know, we were promised this movie for 2 years. And that might have hurt it a little bit, because that is a lot of expectation, okay? That's a lot of vampire movie foreplay to lead up to what I got last night. I'm just saying. So imagine you're flirting with like the hottest dude, and he has all these possibilities, or lady has all these possibilities, and it's 2 years of just foreplay and teasing, and this is going to be the best night of your life, and then it happens and you're like, that's it, huh? That's what I shaved for? Yeah, that's what this movie felt like. So let's jump into it. Quick synopsis for anyone. And I just want to be clear. We're putting the book aside, okay? Let's pretend the book, you haven't read the book, you don't know the book exists. Just this movie as a vampire movie, let's talk about it. Writer Ben Mears returns to his childhood home of Jerusalem's Lot in search of inspiration, only to discover that his hometown is being preyed upon by a bloodthirsty vampire, leading him to band together with a ragtag group to fight it. Okay, has promises, right? Let's talk about some vampire crossovers, because there are a couple that I caught. Miss Alfre Woodard, she plays the doctor in this movie. She was Ruby Jean, Tara's mom in True Blood. She was so good in that. It's time for a True Blood rewatch. When I came back from the French Quarter, I was like fired up and ready for True Blood again. And then Alexander Ward plays Barlow, and he's a very specific looking gentleman. And he also was in a TV series called Vampire the Masquerade, both New York by night and LA by night. And then he was in American Horror Story Hotel, which we know is the season with the vampires. He played the addiction demon. William Sadler, who I love, is in this, and then he's in a movie called Living Among Us, and he was also in the TV series From Dusk Till Dawn. But most importantly, and I am going to cover this very, very soon, Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood. One of my faves. I'm going to revisit it, and we're going to talk about it on the podcast, but he was in that. He played the mummy who was playing poker with the Crypt Keeper. Vampiric references. There wasn't really anything, I didn't expect anything. However, when they're trying to convince the priest that the vampires are real and that they're taking over the town, they give him the book Dracula. So in this universe, the book Dracula does exist. Interesting trivia, I paid attention to this myself. The word vampire is not uttered until 52 minutes into the film. And this film is almost 2 hours long. I was actually surprised, but we'll talk about it in my thoughts. I was surprised that it was as long as it was, because I just felt like they could have done more in that time. All right, let's break down the universe of 2024's Salem's Lot. Relationship to humans. So the vampires feed on humans. The only thing different than the using you as cattle and turning you is the human servant. And the human servant in the beginning of the movie is Straker, and he's killed very quickly. And then another lady is turned into Barlow's human servant. But they never fully explain like the extent of the human servant, how they're made, anything, but apparently they have a human servant. Just to say, like, these vampires are not going to have a love affair with you or anything like that. They're just going to kill you and turn you, or turn you into a human servant. Relationship with animals is never addressed. Let's talk about appearance. So we have the master vampire, that's Barlow. Then we have all the maid vampires, okay? The maid vampires are pale. They have fangs, like pretty standard, and their eyes glow. Barlow looks more like Nosferatu. Bald, pointed ears, long bony fingers with long fingernails, very slim, appears to be very tall. And then the top of his head has like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like big red bulging veins. But I'm just like, that doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even line up with vascular. It almost looks like, I don't know how to describe it. It is just like this weird like red veins up the back of his head. Fangs. So each of the maid vampires have 2 sharp extended canines, whereas Barlow has a mouthful of fangs. All right. Blood. Yep. These vampires are on an all blood diet. So we don't see a lot of killing, but we do see characters watching killing and then blood is splattered on them. So there is like a lot of blood, but it's an all blood diet for these vamps. As far as food, they don't eat, but I did want to mention that in this universe, garlic does apparently repel them. We never see it, but somebody mentions it. Sunlight. They cannot be in the sun, but we do see them up during the day. But this is confusing because at one point in time they're like going to stake a vampire and she is dead to the world. She's like in a coma, dead. But then we see other vampires up and moving during the day. So like, can some be up and just not in the sun and others pass out? I mean, like, she's so out that they're going to stake her and she's going to sleep through it. Then we see them rise at dusk, but the direct sunlight is blocked until the direct sunlight is no longer blocked, and then they all burst into flames. Okay, fine. Sleep. So Barlow sleeps in a coffin, and it's implied that this coffin is full of dirt. It's just implied. They drop the crate that the coffin is in, and there's dirt in it, so the implication is that he's sleeping on the homeland soil, but then all the other vampires are like sleeping in trunks of cars or not sleeping, so that's not very clear at all. Holy items. All right, so apparently holy water will burn them. You can also use medallions, Catholic medallions. I would assume also use the wafers. That is never addressed. Then crosses glow in the presence of the vampires. And the crosses like blow them back like an explosive. So the one gets slammed up against a wall. But then they hold 2 popsicle sticks together and that doesn't work, but they have to bind it with tape and then it starts to glow, but then the tape fails and they have to like say a prayer over the popsicle cross. But then the priest is holding up the cross and he's like, I'm a priest. And Barlow goes, are you? And then the cross goes out. It doesn't light anymore. And Barlow's like, isn't it sad to see a man lose his faith? And it's never addressed again. Like, what the fuck? So, ooh, I don't normally curse on this podcast. You got a curse out of me. So I'm just like, wait. So the school teacher, the doctor, the writer, they're all full of faith and have no problems with the cross working. But the priest is the one who has no faith. Why? Please explain that more to me. And why he had faith and then he didn't because it was glowing and then it went out. And why the popsicle sticks. Whatever. Don't worry, buddy. We're going to get to all of this in my thoughts. Oh, and apparently they can't walk on holy ground, so they're safe in the church. Okay. Rules. Well, we know that they have no rules against turning children because they go after kids and they turn the kids, a bunch of kids. The vampires need invited in, and you can revoke the invitation, at which point in time they are like blown out of the house. They don't cast a reflection, and white roses repel them. That's an old one. White roses. And when they go to get white roses, the florist is like, sorry, this guy Straker bought them all. What do you mean? What? Don't worry, we're gonna get there. Powers. So we see Barlow when the men first carry his crate in. I don't know why I all of a sudden have the hiccups because I'm so excited, I guess. I'm like sucking in air because I'm so excited. In a bad way. So they're carrying in the crate with the coffin, they drop it, and they get it to where it needs to be, and the whole point of dropping it was to show us that there's dirt in it. Well, then Barlow from inside the coffin is calling one of these guys, and then all of a sudden his eyes turn completely white, and you can tell he's being mind controlled, and he's like walking towards the coffin. Then his friend was like, dude, let's go, and it breaks the mind control. So we know that they can do some kind of mind control. And we see this happen multiple times. So even the new vampires can do this. It's not a master power. Like, any of them can do it as soon as they're turned. They can fly. A bunch of the vampires keep saying, like, the master wants to talk to you. Barlow wants to talk to you. So, but I guess either they have a hive mind or Barlow can speak to the maid vampires, but for whatever reason, he keeps telling them to bring these like last surviving humans to him. I don't know why. And I don't know why they thought that would work. Then we see one of the vampires is burned by a cross on his cheek, and later we see him still with that burn. So apparently they have no healing abilities, which is kind of a bummer. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about this healing ability thing, because we're going to talk about how are they made. Let's just say this is the point in the movie where I was getting fired up, because in the beginning I was like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. But by the end I was mad. I was actively angry. And my friends can back this up. So we see that Straker kidnaps Ralphie, this little boy, right? He feeds him to Barlow. And he says the master needs a sacrifice so he can then turn the town into his image. So I guess he has to sacrifice a little boy to then be able to make new vampires? Why? That doesn't even make sense. So then a week later, his brother Danny is grabbed in his own backyard, but he's not taken, he's just fed on. So then he goes to his mom and he's like, I don't feel so good. And the mom takes him to the hospital. So they find out he's severely anemic and they start a blood transfusion. Well, then the little boy's like, I'm thirsty. And he rips down the bag of blood and starts shoving it in his mouth, and then he dies. And then he wakes as a vampire the next night. And I'm like, okay, fine. He's buried and then he climbs out of his coffin. So I was like, okay, maybe it's like one of those things where you are starting the turn and then you have to officially die to turn, right? Like Vampire Diaries or True Blood. But we never see them intake vampire blood. So apparently it's just a bite, but then the turn happens. And I was like, okay, fine, I'm watching this. So the little boy climbs out of the coffin the next night and attacks the gravekeeper, or whatever they're called. And then the gravekeeper shows up at the bar, and the gravekeeper like has asthma. He's wheezing so bad. I don't know if it's the nurse in me or what, but that wheezing gets me uncomfortable every time I hear it. So he's wheezing and he tells the teacher, I don't feel so good. So the teacher is like, I'll take you to the doctor tomorrow and you can stay at my house tonight. Why? He's a big boy. Or you have no ER? Like you can't call the doctor? Like he's audibly wheezing. He clearly is not getting an air. Okay, fine. So he takes him back to his house and then he starts to realize what's going on because he sees the bite mark. So the gravekeeper dies and the teacher goes and gets his best friend Ben Mears because they've known each other for a day, so now they're best friends. And he's like, can you come look at this guy in my house? I think he's a vampire. And Ben's like, sure, why not? I'm literally in the middle of banging my lady, but I'm going to stop that to come check out your vampire because we're best friends now. So they go and the bite mark is now gone. And the teacher goes, it's gone, isn't it? The mark. According to lore, the mark fades and then the turn can take minutes to days. What do you mean? First off, what lore? What are you talking about? But we're going to talk about this later, okay? Bear with me as I start to rant. But then why minutes to days? What's the difference? Like, why does this guy... Ah, dang it. I just knocked into my mic. This is what happens when I get all fired up like this. Bear with me, YouTube. I have to...
Why minutes to days? What's the difference?
You can tell how fired up I am.
To rant.
Okay.
It's to days. What's the difference?
Why does one vampire turn in minutes and then another vampire is taken into the morgue and then put in the ground and then rises? What's the difference? How do we determine how quick these vampires are turning? And I'm very confused about what lore he's talking about, because as somebody who knows the lore, I've never uttered that sentence in my entire life ever. So let's move on, okay? Let's not talk about all the inconsistencies yet. So then this gravekeeper, his eyes start to glow and he rises and he's a vampire and they use the cross and he gets blasted back and the teacher's like, I revoke my invitation. He gets pulled out. So his turn doesn't take very long at all. But then they're in the morgue waiting to see if another person rises because apparently they still don't believe in vampires. And then the doctor is bit, but she has a rabies vaccine on her, which who carries rabies vaccine? No, I carry Tylenol and like Benadryl. I don't carry rabies vaccine. But apparently this small town doctor has so many issues with rabies that she carries the vaccine actively in her bag. She pulls it out, shoots herself up with rabies vaccine. And she's like, if you do it fast enough after the animal bite, you won't get the virus. I'm like, What? That's not even real science. So now we're not sticking to real vampire lore or real science. It's just everything's out the window right now. It's like, this is ridiculous, but they're going to use it later, right? Nope. Never use it again. She's the only one saved by the rabies virus. Moving on. Are you as frustrated as I was? How do they die? For as convoluted as the turning is, stake to the heart and sun. That's it. That's it. And apparently if you kill the head vampire, you kill them all. But that doesn't matter because they kill all of them before they kill the head vampire. And then the head vampire dies way too fast. I'm just like so unimpressed at this point in time. Heartbeat or breathing. This is never addressed. But they die to rise. So that makes me think no heartbeat or breathing. But then Mike Ryerson and that wheezing lasted a while. It's just like, why is he wheezing? Maybe the human had asthma and so the vampire has asthma. I don't know. Are they good or are they bad? There's no way around this one. These are the bad guys in the story, but vampires, I wouldn't take this personally because they were so bad at writing villainous vampires. I can't fathom what they would have done to heroic vampires. I can't imagine how bad it would have been. So probably count your blessings. All right, here we go. Tropes I love and tropes I hate. I love when there's like that one person in town who knows what's going on, but nobody will listen to them. And in this one, I'm not talking about the teacher. I'm actually talking about the kid. So there's a kid named Mark who loves like Universal monsters and stuff. And let me tell you, little guy, you stole this movie. You were the best part of the movie. He was such a good character. They should have just made a movie about him because that would have been awesome. The adults should have just stayed out of it. But I do love that idea of like, you get bullied for being the town freak and then all of a sudden you're the one person that can save everybody. I love that trope. Tropes I hate. I hate saved by faith. Hate it. So like the cross doesn't work if you don't believe and then suddenly you muster faith and like all that BS. I hate that. I hate it. But we've talked about this before on the podcast, right? So let's talk about something I haven't talked about. And this is kind of the reverse of the trope I love. So the trope I love is where they have established that this person is the expert on something and they kind of get bullied for it and then they end up being the person everyone needs. Trope I hate is when a character out of nowhere is suddenly an expert on something and it is never established and then they just lay out everything you need to know as an audience member. Come on. So I know I've said before, I love when we have a character like a Van Helsing character who will list the rules out for me. I do love that, but I love it in a way that it has to be believable and understandable. So if you're the vampire hunter who's coming in saying, let me tell you what you need to know about vampires, great. But if you're just like a high school English teacher and it's never established that you know anything about folklore, mythology, vampires, anything, and then all of a sudden you ramble off everything they need to know, come on. Come on. Lazy writing. That is lazy writing. That's almost as bad as I've written myself into a corner, so now I'm going to use magic to get out of it, or I'm going to pretend it was all a dream. Don't do that. That is awful. All right, the ratings. Let's jump in here. You guys always like the ratings when it's a movie I hate, so hopefully I live up to your expectations of being an absolute bitch. How scary or evil are the vampires of 2024's Salem's Lot? Well, they can fly, okay. They turn very fast, I guess. It's minutes to days. The timeline is very confusing in this movie. It's so inconsistent, but we're gonna give them what we know. Fly, turn fast, bloodlust, hive mind. They become a group very, very fast. And they do whatever the master tells them, so blind obedience, very scary. But they are bound by the sun. They're repelled by holy items. They are thrown back by holy items. You can revoke your invitation. They burst in, there's a lot of flaws to these vampires. And not just that, but they are pretty much bested by some of the most unimpressive heroes I've ever seen in a horror film, or a movie for that case. So that is gonna hurt them. So I mean, it feels kind of high, but I'm gonna give them props where props are due. And I'm gonna give them a mid-level 5 out of 10 stakes to the heart for scariness and evil. That feels charitable, but I'm gonna give them that. How sexy or alluring are the vampires of 2024 Salem's Lot? Excluding the child vamps. We don't give sexiness scores to child vamps on this podcast. Let's look at the adult ones. They get their honorary vamp point. That's it. That's it. Considering the poor showing that they made, they should consider themselves lucky that I gave them that one. They are about as sexy as that weird guy at the bar that keeps coming over to hit on you, even though you keep telling him, I'm not interested, please go away. And he's trying to impress you with like the glory days of his high school football career, but then he's like drunkenly telling you about how you remind him of his ex-wife. That's about how sexy these vampires are. Yeah. All right, my thoughts. I'm gonna try and keep this calm and professional. This is an inconsistent mess of lazy writing, and there is no excuse for it, because this is where we're gonna bring the book in a little bit. You have a well-established, much beloved, solid vampire story as your basis. You're not even starting from scratch. Then you have a very big budget and plenty of time. There is no excuse for what I watched last night and today. But even taking this movie into not knowing the book at all, just as a movie itself, it's not a good vampire movie. It's not a good horror. It's not even an okay movie. It's just bad. It's bad. It's boring. Sometimes it can be so bad that it's fun. This is not one of those. This is one of those movies where I was like, well, there's 2 hours I'm not getting back, and I don't understand how you can't fit what you need to in 2 hours. But I do want to address the book here for a second. Stephen King. We all know that sometimes he doesn't nail the ending, right? He has trouble with the endings. That being said, let me tell you what King does great. King is so good at bringing together this like random group of people who suddenly become this ragtag bunch that have to like come together, work together, and save the day. It is a prime example. It was so, they took it and turned it into like an excellent horror film. I don't know what happened here. Even Pet Sematary was not that bad. I actually enjoyed it. So I had high hopes for this movie. But they took this idea of like this ragtag. I honestly felt nothing for these characters. They had no chemistry. Then they go up against the big bad who's just as boring. And so the whole thing was like I saw no bond. I saw no nothing that made me care about any of them. I feel like it jumped around and it just robbed us of these big moments, okay? So for example, Ben falls in love with Susan, but we don't see that develop. And then all of a sudden he's heartbroken that Susan is a vampire and he has to try and save her. Mark's parents are murdered, but it doesn't matter because we met them 30 seconds prior, so we don't care about them at all. Members of the heroes group, like the teacher, get picked off, the priest gets picked off, and it doesn't seem like the survivors really give a shit at all. Like the whole thing is so just there, it's just happening in front of you, but nobody seems to really care about anything. The whole town is turned in what feels like a blank, but then they have these lines that make you question the timeline, because at one point in time the doctor's like, were you able to reach Salem's Lot? And the nurse is like, I haven't been able to reach the lot in days. And I'm like, what do you mean days? It's been days? How long has it been? And where have the humans been this whole time? Have they been like locked up, or they just like missed the whole town turning? And all of a sudden the guy walks out and there's just vampires everywhere. Like literally there's 4 people left. And I was like, what? When did that happen? So confusing. So then what happens is the whole town is turned and there's like 4 people left. So the tension should be extremely high. The stakes are high. We should be on the edge of our seat. And I was just like, nah, I don't know. Sucks for you. Like I hear the words you're saying, but I don't feel any of the feelings. There was just no buildup at all. When the showdown happens with an ancient vampire, it's so quick and it's so unimpressive that I thought, well, this can't be it. And then the credits rolled. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. So you can't take an unimpressive villain and put him up against with an even less impressive group of heroes, because the combination just makes it lame. Your big bad is so lame. So you're telling me he's existed for centuries. He made it from England to here, which I assume prior to England he was somewhere in, you know, the Carpathian Mountains. He makes it to us. He wants to sacrifice a boy. Why? Why this boy? Why this town? Why do you want to turn this town? Have you done it before? Was it unsuccessful before? Or is all of Eastern Europe now vampires and now you're making it right here? I don't know. None of that is ever explained. And why this house? Why do you have to kill this boy in this house? Or does the house not matter? If the house doesn't matter, then why mention the name of the house so many times? So I'm just watching the whole thing and I'm like, what is happening? So then we see mind control, but the humans are able to break the mind control every single time. Every time. Never once do we see a human mind controlled into doing something they don't want to do. They break it every time. Then we see a vampire approach, but he gets a cross pulled and he gets slammed back against a wall, and then the invitation is revoked and he gets slammed out of the house. And I was like, well, I feel like maybe really these vampires are not a problem at all. And then we see the priest and he loses faith so the vampire can get him, but this is never ever addressed again. Nor do they fully establish in the beginning that this man is so broken inside that he no longer believes in God. No idea. But apparently the teacher is a folklore expert and the priest has no faith. Okay, fine, that's fine. The teacher character, like I said, completely pointless. I don't know why all of a sudden he's like, according to folklore, and then a boom, 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 boom. And you're like, what? What are you talking about? And then here's the reason why he's so unnecessary. Mark, the little boy, we've already established, loves Universal monsters, has all the comic books. When he's realizing there's vampires and he pulls out his comic books to like take notes, yes, that's believable. That's fun. I'm here for that. And then this little boy is like, I'm going after the master myself. He was so good. I just wish the movie was just about him up against vampires. I would have absolutely watched the shit out of that. It felt to me like a bunch of people came together and they're like, we should do Salem's Lot. And then they were like, you know, it'd be cool. And they came up with like 4, 5, 6 cool scenes. And then they didn't care about the plot in between those things. They were like, you know, it'd be cool if a guy scrambles up in a window. You know, it'd be cool if we splatter blood. And I was just like, okay, well, what about the storyline in between? And they're like, it's fine. So here's what I'm going to tell you, the listener / watcher. If you want to write and make a vampire movie where the vampires are the enemy, 1, your rules have to be consistent. You have to think them out. You have to suss them out. You have to understand your type of vampirism and how the turn happens. And this all has to be clear, and you cannot stray from that. You have to show one good kill on each side, a good human kill and a good vampire kill, to establish how does it happen and how hard is it to kill the vampires versus how easy is it to kill the humans. That kind of ups the stakes. Show the motive. What are the vampires after and why? And the master has to be so big and bad and such a presence that you fear that the heroes will not make it. There has to be a part of you that's like, okay, is this going to be one of those movies where the bad guy wins? And you have to care about the heroes winning, you know, if that's what you want. So you have to make us care about those characters. You can't rob us of them falling in love. You can't rob us of a priest struggling with his faith. You can't rob us of a little kid who just gets bullied every day and just is so frustrated and then suddenly he's the answer. You cannot rob us of those character moments, because then the audience is just pissed. I'm thankfully I already had Max. So I didn't spend anything, but I did give 4 hours to this movie because I watched it twice, and that kind of makes me mad, especially because October is my busy season and I just waited 2 years to watch this movie. That's it. I'm done. I'm not giving any more time or energy to Salem's Lot 2024. I will never, ever, ever watch it again. I will tell everybody not to waste their time. So, tell me what you think about the new Salem's Lot. What do you think of my review? Am I being too mean? Am I being too nice? Do you agree with me? And what would you add to how to write a vampire movie? I'm curious. Tell me down below. And then join me in 2 days on the 6th at midnight. Tony from Hack the Movies will be here. We'll be talking about Nosferatu the Vampire from 1979. I'm very excited for you to see that episode. It was shot in the Buffalo Bill house from Silence of the Lambs. And then the following week is Jacob Gibbons from Waterproof Records, and I have to, it's one of my top 5 episodes ever recorded. Tony and Jacob, and then the one shot down in the French Quarter. I don't know how I'm ever gonna top these. Next October is gonna have to be huge, because this October has by far been the most fun I have ever had in my life or on this podcast. So please join me for that. I love you guys. I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. I'm gonna go see if the sun is finally down so I can go play outside. Bye.